And we are live. Hello, Thanos.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Oh, Monday morning, you know.
Like a Monday.
Yeah, like a Monday, exactly.
At least for once, it's cool because I'm recording with somebody that is on the same time zone as I am.
Really?
Yeah, generally I'm recording with people in America, so it's always like late hours. It's day over there and it's night over here. So for once, I appreciate that we both have the same like background light. You know,
Nice. What are
um,
you, by the way?
I'm in Belgium, in Brussels.
Oh, nice, nice.
So I think we're kind of aligned. It's we're on the same line on the earth. So it's
Kind of,
nice.
kind of.
So the first question I ask every guest here, um, people know who motion punk is, but my question is, who is Thanos? And when I ask you that question, I don't want you to talk about work because we know your work. So I want to get to know the person behind the persona.
Okay. Tricky question. I'm not used talking about myself, or I never thought to define or say anything about who I am or personally. But I guess I'm just another nerd on the block or something. I'm curious about many things. I I'm very lazy. Also, I uh, I have made my work as my hobby. Actually, I made my hobby as my work in order to, I don't know, escape reality. I guess in a way, it really helps me to deal with many things that bother me. Um, I used to be, uh, I had a computer addiction, I think. I always had since I was a child. And growing up, I spent a lot of time on playing online games for years, neglecting my duties in the real world. And at some point, this addiction turned into 3D, which became another addiction, and it became my whole thing. So I cannot really separate who I am with the 3D thing, if you know what I mean. It's a part of me. It's like for others is still playing PlayStation maybe and having fun and everything. For me, it gives me the same pleasure to come here and do some particles or just organizing my desktop, or so it's part of who I am. It's a big part at this point. Other than that, I'm quite introvert. I say I'm living a quiet life. I don't go out much. I mean, during the night, I used to, when I was younger, to be more wild and everything. But over the years, I just focus on my day-to-day work. I like traveling. um, we recently moved to Slovenia from Greece. So
You moved for living, or you moved just for traveling?
for living, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Yeah, because I was living in Athens for the best part of my life. And Athens is a place that can tire you very much. It's a very big capital. It has like 4 million people, I think, or something. It's too hectic, too loud, too much crime recently. And we wanted to change in lifestyle, so we moved to Slovenia, where everything is in nature. Um, I bicycle here a lot now. I go for basketball, things that I've been doing when I was younger and trying to reintroduce them to my life. So yeah, I spent a lot of time outdoors recently rather than being on the computer all the time. Um,
Is your wife Slavic?
she's from Ukraine. So yeah.
Okay, because that's not the usual destination. So I
Mhm.
was, when you said like Slovenia, like even like the language and everything is like another thing. So I was surprised. It's interesting. It's interesting.
Well, it's very random though. It's like we just came on vacation like 2 years ago. We went to some lakes and stuff, and I was like, "Oh, how I wish I would wake up in the morning and this scenery, you know." And and with this and that, we just moved here, just like that. We didn't think it twice, you know. I don't know. I've become very impatient with life choices in general and waiting on things. And I'm thinking, oh, you know, I'm halfway there, let's say. So we just came here without thinking it. And right now we realize the challenges here in terms of, I don't know, everyday life is way different than it was in Athens because we are remote in somehow kind of a village type of thingy, which we kind of love and hate at the same time. It's we're a lot of we're city people, you know, city not city, but people from capital, and challenges. Like for instance, like we get into this house in the summer. I was very happy, you know. I have this garden and everything, and 2 weeks in, there's a snake that passes by through the garden. And I lose it completely because I hate snakes. Like it's my nightmare and everything. And took me 2 weeks to start going out normally again and cherishing the moment we moved here. Then all of a sudden, after being here for almost a year, they changed some laws for taxation, and they it's not worth for me staying here anymore. So now we're actually in the process of going back again to Greece, take a moment and regroup and think about next steps. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was a very thought answer. And thank you because I took note, but I took notes, and you know, the way I conduct this is very organic. So I have my questions, but then I will bounce on stuff that you said. And like question, like what was the video game you used to play?
Well, I used to play a lot of how they're called, MMOs,
Yeah, okay.
RPGs.
Not surprised.
I it's surprise.
No, I'm not surprised.
You're not surprised, right?
No.
So I used to play with my friends when I was younger. We were gathering with PlayStation and, you know, smoking weed and everything and playing all night. Like is it called? Not the FIFA, the other one.
I don't. There were plenty of those. So
PS. Anyways, yeah, we were playing this football all night, you know, for the all summers. Like we've been doing like this all summers. And when I was alone, I was going and playing like Morrowind, Skyrim, and all was good till I discovered like my true addiction, which was online gaming. And it started with Lineage, a Korean MMO game or something. You know, this world of elves and wizards and everything.
yeah.
Kill each other all the time. You have fun. And the last game I got very addicted to was League of Legends. I was playing like, I wanted to play competitive, although I sucked really hard.
Okay.
You know, every kid is like, oh yeah, I'm so good at this till you meet other kids.
Yeah, then you realize you're not, but
yes, exactly. Yeah. Same as 3D, you know, it's like
I mean, you know, like I always say when I invite people to the podcast, I generally make a profile of them, and it's always fun because I would say 99% of the time I'm right on what I kind of like read about the person, even if we haven't talked, you and I, before. And I connect your passion for video games and the MMOs with what you just said, is like you also wanted to kind of like a little bit escape reality. We don't have, I mean, we don't have to go in depth into that, but why do you want to escape reality, or you want it to escape reality?
I grew up never wanted to work in a way. Like, I know it sounds a little silly, but it would remember yourself when you were 13 or something. Like, you wanted to just go out and play polo. Like, your dad or your mom were trying to push you to be a lawyer or a doctor or something, right? I remember my dad was like, if you go to become a doctor, I'll buy you Harley Davidson, because that was I loved bikes when I was young for some reason, although I never driven one in my life. And even that wouldn't tempt me. So as I became more independent from my parents, and because I was a very good student, I went through the high school and everything, I passed the exams, I went to some business school or something. And around 1 year and a half, I think, in business school, I realized that I don't care at all about any of this. Like, I need something different, but I didn't know what that was, right? So at the time, I went to, I had a friend that his parents owned an advertising company, a very big production house in Greece. And he was explaining me, he was describing me what storyboards are, and I got fascinated from this. And while I had like literally nothing to do with anything, I just like computers at the time. So I went and studied graphic design at first, which I really sucked at the time. Turned into 3D, but very quickly, while I loved 3D, I also loved games at the same time. And because I was very lazy, I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want responsibilities or anything. I would just go, on internet cafes. This is how we call them in Greece, like these places where everyone goes to their computers, and you rent a computer and you just play there, or they're 24/7. They're all, So I was going there. I could sit like many times for 30 hours straight, right? Eating pizza on top of my computer, having fun with friends and stuff. And yeah, I was completely disconnected for a couple of years from anything real. I was trying to get by with as little money as possible. And there was no actual purpose of escaping reality in the sense of, oh, something bad is happening or anything. It was
Sure.
more delaying to get my responsibilities, let's say, as an adult. And it's funny because these days I see literally kids, for me, like 25-year-old with successful careers in motion design, and they're very good and they're directing and they're doing things. And I was like, oh my God, at 25, I wasn't even working or anything. I was just a bum. So yeah, that's that.
You know that it's I think socially it's a paradox to me what's happening nowadays, because if you take the generation of our grandparents, for example, or even our parents, they usually got married very young and they started to work very young too. Then that changed. And then we started like studying longer, like for longer, and people were like, at least here in Europe, like are marrying later and getting kids way later, and prioritizing different things. And like now, maybe not like the family nucleus part, but for work, it's becoming to what it was before. It's like people are entering the workforce like the very, very young, even if like for many does not work. But I mean, that's another debate. And what I also like find interesting of like what you just shared, and thank you for sharing that, is and for being open about it, is that like the evolution of a person. So because people, when they look at your work online, they only see the hard work, because it is hard work what you do. And often they don't imagine the process somebody sometimes goes by to achieve or to be where they are today. And who would have told that, like, yeah, you were lazy for quite a bit. Um, and and another paradox that I find interesting is like the fact that, but this is like a common one because you're an introvert, but you really love games where you could play with your friends. So, so like physically you might feel awkward around people, but then like connecting differently, you felt at ease and you were craving for that contact for people. So your alias is motion punk. So the motion part, we get it. I grew up listening to punk a lot, and punk bands, and I went to concerts and skateboarding and all that thing. And so I'm curious, why did you choose punk? Because that's not like any choice.
Of course, it's like as you, since I was very young, like 8 or 9, I started listening to rock, hard rock, heavy metal, thrash metal. I became metalhead at the age of 10 or something. I was like listening to extreme things like Norwegian black metal bands and stuff. I wasn't a normal kid, let's say, I wanted to carve Slayer on my arm or have Sepultura tattoos and everything. Of course, I was listening to punk and all. But I think the punk became, we co-founded Yeti Pictures with my friend Tony Zagoreos back in 2018. And we were both had the same kind of background in music. It was, for other people, it was intolerable to sit with us in the office, and listen, you know. And we were also a little, we have this punk mentality, we're against authority. You know how this whole thing goes. And we were calling ourselves, instead of directors or whatever, we were calling ourselves motion punks. Motion punks, it's fun. So when we split afterwards, I was like, oh yeah, I'll just keep this name and go on, because it also describes a sense of anarchy, a sense of chaos in my work, where I do a lot of experimental things. Yeah, I guess I didn't put much thought into it. I just thought it's cool and went with it.
That's okay. There's no judgment. Like, I think it's important. Like, sometimes we do stuff that are very well thought, and others are just, it's cool, and so don't worry, it's okay. I don't.
No worries. There's always some reasoning in what I do, but at the same time there isn't. And same thing applies to my work, because there is this constant debate about process and storyboards and storytelling and everything. And I'm like, fuck all that. I just do things, right? I do things. And then many times I write bullshit on top of it, and I say, oh, I did this because of that. And there's nothing there, in fact. It's just some cool visuals. And I say things on top, and then everyone was like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, you don't know the half of it. But I think it's also how art, I think, is in general. It's like, you see paintings, you see things, you hear songs that you don't even... I like Wu-Tang, the hip-hop band, right? Do you think I understand the lyrics? I don't understand anything. It's just, I love the vibe, Same with the painting. Do you think I understand? I teach art direction and everything. Do you think I go to a painting and I say, oh, the diagonal strokes and how the golden ratio works? No, I didn't see any of it. I just get this feeling that I appreciate things, So, yeah, I think it's a lot about, as you said, about doing things because you felt like it, rather than have a rationale behind it. And then if you're a good copywriter, you just go on top and disguise things to look polished.
Yeah, it's I think what you described, like, like, fuck this shit. we live in a moment right now where like there's gurus at every corner of the street. Like everybody is selling you a lifestyle, or how you should like press your coffee or do your 3D, or what's the perfect process to success. And the truth is, I mean, at least for me, is that art is a very personal thing. Creativity is a very personal thing, and there's not a one fits all model, you know. If that's your process, that's your process, you know. And I mean, I've also went through those things where I don't know, like I'm on a project and I express something. I don't really know why, but it goes out that way. And like you said, I wouldn't call it like bullshit, but I would say then you on like once that's out, it's like, okay, how do I make sense of this to explain it to the client or to the agency? And then you find like the right connections with the brief and what you've outputted, and then you create the metaphor. Like that, to me, that segment in between is also creativity. So it's not like, sometimes it is bullshit because you have to justify it, but the fact that you manage to create a metaphor to connect this point to this point, like, says also something about your creativity. You know, it's like you manage to build a story out of it. And that to me is important also. It is
No,
bullshit, but it's cool bullshit.
no, it's not just bullshit. I completely agree, because it's like, if we don't have intuition in our work, if we don't express ourselves sometimes with how we feel at the moment when we design something or where we do something, it's like it doesn't make sense, you know. It's like we're not in a profession where everything is structured and it's 0-1, and you know, you just let things out. Because I always say this to my wife many times, because we're doing the same profession, and I tell her, like, just send this frame out. It doesn't matter if you think it's trash. It's like, it might resonate with someone and give him some idea or spark something else. It's very important, especially when you're part of a team, to just throw things out, you know. Sometimes they might be extremely conceptual and very on point, and other times can be extremely abstract, but with a good direction and a good, you know, or a client sees it and says, "Oh, I love that." It happened to me quite a few times, to be honest. Like doing something very random and thinking, "Oh, it's not gonna work or anything. I'll just put there in the dailies." And then they were like, "Oh, we need to explore this type of visual because something." So yeah, of course, it's huge part of the process. I don't think it's bullshit in the terms of I'm bullshitting people. I just think that, because what you asked me before about the punk and this and that, is like, I just sometimes let things go, you know, without thinking twice. And there are many cases also that I over let go things and I don't structure enough, and work doesn't align with what I want versus what the client wants, but that's another story.
You know, it's funny because you mentioned like this kind of like anarchist against the system thing, like attitude, and nonetheless we are quite entrenched in the system, and we are in the business of providing a service, and we're trading time for money in a way. And so, and I've been advocating a lot about regaining our time to younger artists. You know, like, don't, like, it's important to like hone your craft and like attain the things you're aiming at, but don't burn all your time, because that time is precious. And to me, and I mean, I will see if I was right or wrong with this question, but so you were living in Athens. Now you're in Slovenia, but you're going back to Athens. you work with international clients, which are located worldwide. And one of the classical moves of a lot of artists is to move to the country where the work is happening, which a lot of the time is United States, for example, or the UK or something like that. Nonetheless, you stayed in Athens, despite the distance, the time zones, which I know can be hard to work with. Why? Why is that? I have my idea, but I want to see where you go with this.
Well, if things work in a certain way, I don't see why to mingle with them. It's like, since I have the rare luck and fortune to work remotely with anyone, and plus all my clients are in US. I don't even work with you. Like, most of my clients are actually in LA, California. So we have always this 8-9 hour difference. But if it's working, and I would rather choose where I live rather than go to the US, for example, where everything is happening, because I'm a freelancer also. I'm not working somewhere. I don't have to be there physically 3 times a week or forever, as they do now. They're turning back the COVID thing into a permanent thing. But it also, to be honest, stopped me from, I don't know, I want to, let's say, retire as a creative director and work at some point somewhere more permanently, let's say, with a team or something. Just because I love this type of collaborating and leading people, and I have my own ideas, my own style. I think I'm experienced enough by now to just, I used to have my own studio, it's the whole process. Plus, I'm not getting any younger to demystify alembics and why they glitch or something. It's not my problem anymore. And I realized that without being physically present in US, for instance, because London for me is out of the question for multiple reasons. One is the very low salaries that there are, which
it's
is
ridiculous.
Like, it's I don't have words for this. I realized that without being physically there, I'm losing a lot. I don't have the same opportunities as other people, but it is what it is. It's like, if one day I'll feel the need that I want to go deeper into this and in a different context than freelancing, probably I will have to move. But for now, things are fine. We're fortunate enough to work from distance. Also, part of what we do, because Greece, for instance, is a little crappy place. Like, it's great for tourists to go to the islands and have fun, but living there full time is not fun. So I'm not going to have a pension over time, right? So I like to live in a country with lower taxes rather than going somewhere where I pay half or more than half of my income for, And that's the reason we're also moving back from here, because I want to go back to Athens, regroup, don't pay ridiculous amount of taxes, keep my money, try to invest. Remember the time that I was saying I was very responsible. Now I'm going to the other spectrum.
You're catching up.
Yeah, I'm trying. But yeah, I guess that's the reason. And also, I really love, I wouldn't like living in a place like US, it's very hectic for me. It's like, I idealize in New York and LA and everything, but go to LA and stay in traffic for 2 hours or 3 hours per day to go from point A to point B, or not having enough money to rent in a good place and you're full of meth heads and homeless people on your door and crime, and it's good to live somewhere where you feel safe, for me, and have less money or less opportunities, rather than trying to be in the center of things and not feeling comfortable in your day-to-day.
You know that it's a conversation we had with Felipe Carvalho, who lives in Portugal, and he also works mainly for U.S. clients, and he has been urged many times to move there, but he doesn't want to, and like his argument, which is I live by the same argument, and I think what you just said is kind of like the same thing, is quality of life. So sure, money is fine and work is fine, but I want my life to be hell. And I'm not saying that people living over there live hell, because to each on their own, like everybody chooses their own burdens and their ways of living, and somebody might live there and feel perfectly fine. So again, I'm saying this without any judgment of anything or anyone. But it's the fact that like the life you get for you in Greece, to me here in Belgium, for Felipe in Portugal, is more important than be constantly thriving in the work. So yeah, I kind of thought it was sort of that.
Sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, if I wasn't a Greek person and I was living in Utah or something, I would probably be still in Utah, because it takes some time to move on from one place to the other, right? It's also the force of habit. You develop your life according to where you are, and then changing, like as we did here, this very drastic change to move to a totally different country. It was a big mass, It wasn't easy, because we didn't came as digital nomads. We came like, here it is, we're fixing our whole life here right now. And it's not a process, honestly, that I want to do, or I want to repeat over and over, if you know what I mean. But definitely quality of life is like also what makes you feel good and patient and creative, and you just have a different mindset if you enjoy your day to day. And I really wish that I was more of a person that wants to be in the center of everything. But when I was younger, I was like this, but I'm just not anymore. I just prefer to be in nature rather than be in a big place.
It's cool that you're sharing these things, because again, going back to this social media trends of like, you have to do this to be successful and do that and everything. I think it's always cool for more junior profiles to see that it's okay to be a weirdo, and it's also okay to kind of like carve your own path. It's not because a lot of people are going there that you have to go there if you don't feel to. It's like some people do feel like to, like Joyce Ho at Camograph shared her story, and she moved from her country to Australia first, and then to the US, and to work at Buck. But that's her story. It doesn't have to be everyone's story. And I also moved radically from different places a couple times already, and yeah, people ask like, would you go there? Would you go there? And I'm like, no, man. It's like, I've already done that. Like, I don't want to do it anymore. And family, kids, and everything that also that like has like makes you take roots. You like, this might be the only question where I'm gonna like touch base more on work, I would say, but I've also worked with clients that are like in LA or like the West Coast, and like you said, that's like 9 hours difference. And so I was curious, for people that might be in the same situation as us, how do you manage that? And like, because the way I experienced it is that like, for them, it's a blessing because we work ahead of time. We're kind of like in the future, if you want. They wake up, work is there for reviewing. They can gather feedback, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And when they go to sleep, we're up and we pick up everything, and the thing keeps going on, you know. But then for us, it can be also very intense. And so, yeah, I'm curious, how do you manage that?
I have the habit of working with same people, to be honest, and same studios and people that I trust, and there is mutual respect and trust, because if this thing is not established, the time difference can make things stressful, because probably you've been through all sorts of experiences as well, and sometimes you happen to be with a great creative director, sometimes you have to be with an asshole that just micromanages you. It's like typical thing. So I think I really try to find to work more with people rather than with clients or specific names. If you know what I mean. I don't care if, I mean, when I was younger, I still didn't care, because in general I don't care about our industry much. That's another thing. But because I wanted to make a portfolio, when there was a Google project, I was like, oh, great, a Google project, let's do it. I didn't ask who was the head there or what I had to do. There wasn't this sort of questions. Now I'm like, do I like this guy? Yes. Do we vibe? Yes. Is the project fit? Yes. Okay, let's do it. It's like, I prefer to, this is how I found the balance, at least for me. The balance is on people, is not on the nature of the work itself. The work itself is difficult by definition, but it can become a nightmare if you're with the wrong people on your team, or you know. Yeah. I guess that's it.
No, but it's interesting because, like, again, this is a very big industry. Like, as a community, we are not that big in the world, but the industry we feed is very big, and so this is very important. Like the fact that you are centering on humans instead of like the prestige, if you want. Like there's gigs not prestigious at all that I've loved doing because it was hard. The pay wasn't that amazing, but like, again, like you said, like the team behind it was awesome, and everybody gave everything, and so it was a great time together. It felt almost like being paid to play. And on the other hand, I had like more prestigious projects, and those were kind of like meh, like meh.
Yeah.
You used to have a studio with your partner. You had Yeti. As far as I know, Yeti was okay. So what made you part ways?
Different approaches into things. So our main difference was that I didn't want to scale up, because although I'm very business oriented right now, and I was back then, it's a whole different beast of managing a studio of 10, 20 people versus being a small team of 3 people, right? But being a small team of 3 people has different challenges, because what was happening at Yeti is like, me and Tony came from Greece without any connections. We climbed up somehow organically we were working extremely hard with no vacations and everything, right? To go there and get some clients from abroad and everything. And we had to overcompensate for that. We had to be creative directors, client management, 3D artists, rotoscoping. Like, we had to do like everything, like all at once. And at some point, when, especially with COVID, when clients started coming more, there was an eruption with COVID, to be honest. I think we've been always working with abroad, but through some agencies and, random jobs. But through COVID, is like, I remember it started with Elastic. We had to do a main title sequence along with what's it called? Edge browser commercial for Windows. And all this, I was alone in the office with Tony. All of our employees were at home. It was, we were not set up for this just yet. Everything was tricky. Our render farm was there. We had to be there. It wasn't allowed to go. Anyways, it was a whole chaotic thing. And that kept me thinking that I just can't do things anymore like this, because there are always circumstances that arise. And plus in Greece, the motion design community is not very expanded or developed, let's say. It's now the new generation that people start appear. 5 years ago, still, we didn't have any options. We didn't have any help. We didn't have, we had to hire people from abroad, but because we were not like a studio that could offer like $800 day rates and everything, it was very difficult to find the right people to help us. So Tony was like, he wanted to expand and get more people and everything. And I wanted to scale down and say, look, we can't just direct. We can be a director's duo or something and, find jobs this way. So we had to part ways because of that. So I preferred to go freelance, don't have to manage anything. I was very focused on work also when I was a freelance because I was hands-on design all the time. I didn't care about business. I had producers from the places I worked with. They were taking care of everything. And Tony wanted to, he made like Yeti really great. Like Yeti is huge right now. They're making a lot of work with clients everywhere abroad, and I still don't know how he manages day to day with the challenges in Greece and everything. But yeah, that's the reason. Just difference of opinions and difference of not creatively, because creatively we align very well always. We kind of matched, but business thing. And I also wanted to. I felt very stressed at some point during COVID. When we were doing very big jobs and I was single-handedly handling 3-4 projects at a time. And I was like, no, I'll have a heart attack or something. It's just, I need to calm down, go back. So it felt like a step back in the beginning for me, being a freelancer. But I focused only on art direction and style frames, and I stopped being a generalist from that point onward. And it worked really, really well after that. I managed to balance life. I made a lot of money like this, way more than I was making with the studio, to be honest. And if you ask me now if I would do things differently, well, as I grow up and I realize that everything lies on my 2 hands, so if I break the hands, I cannot work, well, maybe. So maybe there will be a change in the near future. It's one small detail I can reveal about my future plans.
Okay. It's I think that what resonates with me with what you just shared is, again, there's no like one path, because I think a lot of artists nowadays, when they launch into the market, it's either I'm going to make my own studio or I'm going to be this, like, again, it's very dual. It's like when in fact there's like a lot of infinity shades of gray in the middle. Like you just said, is like, I could have kept like animating and doing this and blah, blah, blah. And in fact, like I didn't do that. I just scaled down and now I only do this and this, and that's your choice. Other people might go like, yeah, I want to do many things because I get like, that's a conversation I had with somebody else who told me, yeah, like I like to do many things because I get bored easily. And if I keep on doing the same things over and over and over and over again, I will hate them. So I kind of like need to cycle through stuff, and that's okay too, And again, I have the impression that you are also like going through cycles. Since like you move, coming back, you left from Yeti and now you're hinting something is cooking somewhere in a way. And I think, like, again, it's to me that's part of like life itself, is that life are like different like waves and cycles, and something you might have rejected like years ago, now you can imagine yourself in it, or the other way around, something you did for years, suddenly you go like, I can't do this anymore, which I've had also, it's like you mentioned, like, this is not my problem anymore, like earlier with technical stuff. And to me, it applies also to work. It's like, again, I used also to do everything, and I was rotoing and compositing and this and that. And at some point I'm like, first of all, I'm not doing everything in the best way possible because I'm splitting myself into too much things at the same time. And I cannot be focused, like razor focused on the things that matter. But also like the mental drain at some point. Like that's the perfect road for burnout. And society is, sadly to me nowadays, driving people to burnout because, and we talked this into other podcasts before this one, is like, today, even if you're only an art director and a style frame artist, you still have to advertise yourself on social media and do some like process behind the scenes shots to promote the work you've done. And you have to be working not only for the business, but on the business. And, like, I don't know how you do it, but like a lot of people have to constantly be doing outreach and all those things like take so much time, so I totally understand your process of funneling down stuff, even if in the end you go like, I have these ideas, but then for that I need to be more than one. So what should I do?
Look, this scale down thing, it's not really scaled down because leaving the studio is one thing. But at the time, my Patreon was picking up. So I was working clients. I was doing personal R&D a lot to have interesting things to show in Patreon. And I was very consistent with Patreon. Then I added courses on top a little bit. And then I went for 1.5 years at Apple, like perma-launching kind of thing. Right? So, and on top of that, I started learning Houdini. And this was the drop that spilled the bucket. It was like, I just can't do all of these things anymore. It's like, it's a different thing than being a generalist and getting burnout by being a generalist. And a different thing having too many tasks to do and getting burnout by too many tasks. Because after a certain point, I got completely burned out. It's like I didn't want to stay on the computer at all anymore. Even though, I'm enjoying what I do. Like I really love it. But when I was your brain, and I go back to, you said some people want to change things because they don't want to do the same thing and they find it boring. I think being a designer and an art director is never boring. It's extremely challenging all the time with totally different tasks because I don't get to choose my style a lot of times, like most of the times. Like it's not that personally I love doing some MoGraph thingies and sometimes very dark cinematic stuff, right? How many times I've done this for actual clients? I don't remember. the last 3 years or so, I don't remember. I just remember doing things for Super Bowl or for Netflix or for whatever product, right? So it's a different type of burnout that can happen when you stretch too thin with what you said, in promoting yourself and everything. And here I have a question for you. Do you think, because I know that the current state of things is like they're pushing people to be everything. You have to know rendering, you have to know how to direct, to animate, although they don't pay for all these things, which is another concept. Do you think it's more beneficial for someone that starts out to be a generalist or a specialist?
That's a difficult question, and I will be very careful to answer it because I would like the way I would approach this is I would say certainly in the scope of a career, like not when you start, but like through the years, I believe you should experiment different things. Because if you're aiming at becoming an art director or a creative director, you need to understand how things work. It's not only the inspiration, the creative direction, whatever. Is like, and when I say how things work is we all have a story of being on set and people saying, "Oh, we'll fix it in post." We all have a story of a director writing things or imagining things that are completely impossible in the budget we have. We all have a story of miscommunication throughout the production, creating setbacks and frustrations, and a lot of that is because people don't know other people's crafts. And so something I've done through the years of my career is, first of all, I'm very curious. If I could learn everything about anything, I would. If you talk to me tomorrow about the trees in Slovenia, which have this like thing, I will be like, oh man, I want to know everything about the trees, but I can't. So that has taught me through the years now when I'm working with a team that I have to lead, how to translate things one way or the other. So am I talking with a junior? Okay, I'm going to translate what's in my head if he's a compositor in a language that he understands as a compositor. I'm not going to talk to him like as if he were a 3D artist because he would understand shit. He will be like, it's not clear what he wants from me. And the other way around, if I'm talking to a client and I have all this input from the team or my own creative mind, I need to put that in words that the client understands. And not go like, this guy is completely wasted. I don't get what he's saying. Like, this is not aligned with our, objectives and our KPIs and blah, blah, blah. And so I would say throughout a career, I will encourage people to dabble into things, not to be professional into those things, but at least to know how they work. Because then when you approach a project, like from a global perspective, you can clearly go like in your head, like, yeah, okay, we don't have budget for that, but we can shoot it this way because then in comp we can do that. And in 3D, that tracking is gonna suck. So maybe blah blah. Like you will be kind of like way more prepared for what's coming ahead. Now, when you're starting, there's two schools. There's people that are saying on one hand, you have to be a specialist. And on the other hand, you have people that are saying you have to be a generalist. I would say leaving between. Because if you're a specialist and your industry crashes, you're fucked. You have no plan B. But if you're a generalist, like a true, wide open generalist, in a world that today wants to put everything into boxes, you might have a hard time finding work because people, they don't get it. Like I've suffered from that. Like I'm a nowadays more creative art director, but I've been a true generalist, and sometimes like, yeah, we don't understand. Like, are you a studio? Are you a person? And like, no, it's me. It's like, yeah, but you have like live action work, and then you have like motion work. It's like, yeah, because I pride myself into be interested into all those things and to like learn those things. And that gives me like versatility, but it's sometimes hard to wrap around your head. So I would say kind of live in between, like specialize, but like don't specialize in one thing. Like have a couple of like decks into your sleeve in case, because like when COVID happened, for example, like perfect example, COVID happened, all the filming industry wrecked. Like all my DOP friends, all my live action like directors, like zero work. And that was very, very hard time to them. But on my end, I was doing live action and I was doing like motion animation at the same time. I could pivot suddenly. I pivoted and then it was great for me. Like, so, I would say to me, live in between.
Okay.
I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, of course. I'm always struggling to give this advice to anyone these days, to be honest, because while I believe that jack of all trades and master of none is not really something that we should aim for, at the same time, there is a process. So, for instance, I do style frames, right? But my style frames, they have animation behind, they have simulations behind, they have things happening behind to get this one image out there, It's not just that I kit bash a few objects together. I know a lot of technical things to be able to do that. Then on the other hand, I see people like, I don't know if you know, I think his name is Sam Mason that works at Hornet, and he directs all the videos for Mac Miller, the rapper.
Okay.
And he does some insane visuals, like things. I'm not into characters much and everything, but he does this so weird cameras and dogs flying and things, and it's both artistically amazing and technically amazing at the same time. And I guess that there are some people that he doesn't do it on his own, but he clearly is the guy that has all this vision, He's like, there are some people just have something special, like Patrick Clare, for instance. He's like, he doesn't know 3D probably. I don't know Patrick. I never worked with him so far, and what he outputs with Raoul Marx it kills me. Like, it's like, I realize that you need a special ability for this. And some people just can skip the line and go in front and just become creative directors or directors by definition, because they have something that the rest of us do not. But other than that, yes, I agree. It needs to know things in order to also filter things to end up doing something that is your strength, because some people are very strong at lighting, right? Why waste time on doing animation? They can just build a career out of that. Or some people are amazing animators. Why they're trying to render? It doesn't really make sense, But it's tricky. And I see the demand these days to be jack of all trades and a good jack of all trades, not master of none. Like, you have... The demands have risen a lot. And I also noticed that the last 1-2 years, I'm getting called in more and more difficult projects. Like, when people have shit the bed that they want someone to clean it, they just like, hey, you're the perfect person for this. And I realized immediately that, oh no, this is not gonna go very well.
I'm going to bounce on two things you just said. About these guys with those crazy ideas that are like the vision and everything. I think certainly there's people that are gifted for those things. But I also think, and I know some people are probably going to hate me for this, but I don't care. It's like a part of it is due to luck. And I'm going to explain why. When I say luck, I'm not saying he's lucky for the ideas he has. Not at all. That's his brain. But some people are lucky to find themselves in the position where they get access to the resources to express those visions. A lot of artists nowadays, it's not that they're lacking ideas or talent. They are not just in the current framing of opportunities. where they can go like crazy and say like, you know what? We're going to make this thing, it's going to explode, and then angels are going to come out of it, and then the lights, I'm going to spit fire in the stadium. Like, you know, the thing where you can go on a crazy rant, which is amazing, but you have the framing that allows you to go wild. A lot of people find themselves in projects where budget is tight, human resources are tight, and you have to be creative to make it work. And so, as much as you can, working with boundaries can be very good, but it's also like limiting you on how crazy you can get. You know? And here, like, Matt Damon shows up. It's like, well, we don't have the budget to, like hire Matt Damon. When in fact, if you're working for like a big agency for Nike, you go like, yeah, and let's bring back Damon. Oh, we're going to call him, see if he's available. I mean, see the difference of perspective, like having somebody that like is well known showing up and like throwing a punchline of a joke. Suddenly for some people, it's possible. And for 99% of us, it's like, don't even think about it.
It's funny that you said that, because I was in motion plus design in Varis. I think it was 2016 or something.
Yeah.
And there was this director from the Mili that did some True Blood titles, I think, or something. This is how I remember him. I don't remember his name.
Okay.
And we were sitting next to each other at the lunch there, at the dinner party or something. And he started describing his process. And his process was exactly what you said. Let's hire Matt Damon. I have this orchestra of 3,000 people, this and that, that.
Yeah.
And while people were looking at him with awe, I didn't give a rat's ass, to be honest, because I was realizing that all this for me is useless because I don't have these resources, and I need to impress people with the resources that I actually have.
Indeed.
I need to find what I can do with my computer, with my hands, with my modeler, with my mind, rather than depend on 3,000 people of a production to do this. Then again, I can't use the word luck in any of the success. For instance, Raul Marx, I don't think he was lucky. He just had, let's say, a great momentum to be at Elastic at the time. But he pulled, let's say, the title sequences on his own within a month. You know what I mean? It's not luck in terms of being around the big production, but it's luck to be in the right place at the right time. So
I 100% agree.
Yeah. So people can see that your expertise is that, and they can value it.
It's like places like Elastic or like other, like those companies, they have like a place that foster that expression, and that pushes you to go into those weird ideas, when many of us like end up with a lot of constraints. And I'm saying sometimes they're good, but like, for example, you've worked for Microsoft. I've worked for Microsoft too. We both know that a lot of the things are hardly framed. There's freedom to do stuff, but like you said earlier, like most of the time, like I'm not like deciding of the style that we're gonna do. When in fact, like sometimes when you read the brief, in your head you go like, man, like doing this thing like super dark, and then it bursts into light would be awesome. But you consciously know, even if you're convinced that this might be visually, emotionally striking for the crowd and for the public, that's never going to live. That's never going to happen, because there's this whole hard framing. And I think like those finding yourself in those companies or those moments where you have the flexibility to explore the weird side, of going like, you know what? we're gonna do this with a pool of like liquid to simulate blood, and cameras, and the experimentation part of it, which leads me to the second thing I wanted to bounce is when you said like, yeah, they're asking us to be everything now, but like good ones in everything. And that's like, again, to me, like cycles in society. And now we're in a cycle where economics are kind of like chaotic worldwide. And so, yeah, they're trying to reduce cost everywhere because money is being funneled in other things. And to me, that what like is like the perfect example of this was you saw the show Arcane, right? On Netflix.
Which
Arcane.
one?
Arcane.
No, I haven't seen it
You
yet.
haven't watched Arcane?
Not yet.
Okay, well, Arcane is based on the lore of video
Of like-
games. Yeah,
Yeah.
from Riot. And Studio Fortiche and other people did like an insane work in the art direction, the visuals, the animation. It's jewel. It's honestly one of the best pieces of animation I've seen in quite a while. And I don't know which head of which like studio, because they revealed recently how much producing those 2 seasons cost. I think it's one of the most expensive animation series ever produced. And so one of the heads of whatever Hollywood studio, I don't remember who was, like started like criticizing and saying, yeah, this was like way too expensive. You could have done it for way less. Like this shows the inexperience of this studio, like which is specialized in video games, and they're not specialized in what we do. And so one of the directors from that studio replied to this guy saying like, no, I think you're confused. It's just that we're paying our artists correctly. Like, we know how much work needs to go into this, and we're paying everybody their fair share. Now, do they pay for their fair share? I don't know. I don't judge that. But I love the response because it's indicative of what you just said. It's like now they're like pressing the orange to get every drop of juice out of it, instead of like what used to be productions. Like, yeah, you have like a modeler, you have an animator, you have like the guy that does the technical rigging. Those jobs existed separately, like structure, like when you shoot a movie, there's like a DOP, there's the assistants, there's this, like, and it costs a lot of money. It's expensive not because they want it to be expensive. It's because it's a battle-tested system, and they know that if people are focused on the task they have to do, it's going to be done right. As soon as people start doing like 10 things, some of those things are not going to be great. And I can attest on jobs where like I'm hired to do many, many things. I consciously know where are the zones where I'm going to put less time, because I prioritize, but also because I know that's not my core skill. I can do it. But generally I advise like, hey, for this and this, we should hire somebody. Like we should have somebody that's his job. But they go like, yeah, well, now the and I'm like, okay, but then fine. And how long can you hold that process? Like how long can you work like that as an artist? A couple years. Then again, road to burnout. It's literally that.
It's not just road to burnout. It's also very risky because you know how many people accept everything. Like we are together in this small graph Slack, right? And I see people asking repeatedly in the X particle section how to do this fluid sync. I try to explain them again and again. You cannot. You need a Houdini artist for that. It's like either your client has very low standards and can accept whatever you give him, not because of your lack of capabilities, because the software cannot handle certain things. It's like, I cannot do like frame by frame in Cinema 4D. I need to use, specific software for that. There is a reason that specific softwares exist around, because if you want to be jack of all trades, you need to know how to simulate in Houdini, right? You need to know how to do MoGraph in Cinema 4D. You need to know how to composite in Nuke, for instance, and motion graphics in After Effects. Everything has its own usage. So a lot of people have so much hard time to say no, and then they're trying to pull off a job with so many technical restrictions, and in the end they fail, and then they get fired or they don't get paid. So it's very risky for me to even not be able to say no just because of the money or just because you are in need, because you also need to think further down the line, what happens if I fail on this task, right? Are they going to take it nicely because I explained it to them? Because I said to the producer, look, if you don't want to hire an artist, this is what is going to happen. And he will say yes. But when shit hits the fan, you're the one that take the blame. You know that, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in our industry, when success comes, it's not going on you, but when shit hits the fan, they all go in your face. And that's why I also wanted to build a personal brand for myself and promote myself very self-centric, in a very self-centric way. So people know that it's me behind this thing. It's not like a collective thing or something. If you want to hire me, that's me. That's my skill set. That individualism that there a lot of people also, they're too artists or too afraid to take credit for, or they're hidden in the shadows of studios of it's a little complex topic, but I think overall that the ability to say no also is very, very important in our days when all of these tasks are required, because fucking up a project just because you didn't want to say no just won't lead anything for your future later,
Yeah. I have mixed feelings about it because, of course, like you said, we have to be professionals and you have to be very clear on what you can and what you cannot do. But I do think we can say that from a position where we're making a decent living.
Of course.
So we have the position to say, like, this gig is asking me this and that. I'm going to say no. But some people don't have that choice. And even I would say, even some companies like push people to not have that choice. So I would say, because I mean, don't be honest. Like you've been into the position too, where there's something you don't exactly master, but you go like, doesn't matter. I'm going to learn it like, before or in between, or I'm going to push it. Like part of that needs to exist too, like, and so I think we cannot be like very categoric with it, saying like, don't take anything if you don't master it. Like there's a range there. But I think like right now, the context in which we are is pushing more and more people to, take on these gigs that are like very, very hard on us. Like in some way or another, I joke sometimes like we're kind of like the IT department of the process, sort of like, it's like you said, like IT goes for the same thing. When it's a success, nobody talks about them. Like this was all the idea of the higher ups. And then when shits go down, it's like fucking IT team, it's them again. Like the network is falling and everything. I cannot access my files. That's the reason why I'm late. Like, and so this is sort of like the same metaphor.
It's funny because I literally learned Illustrator overnight when I was young, because I had a job interview the next day in a graphic design in a printing place. And the skill was to know Illustrator. And I remember that it was lynda.com or something, but back then some crappy place of tutorials. And literally all night, I stayed like 12 hours straight. Masks, joints, this, that, and I went to the job the next day just to realize that it was so toxic there that it didn't make any sense for me to even apply. They were just throwing things at each other, like art director with the design, and I was like, what the fuck is happening here? But yeah, of course, it's like we all been through the stretch, but at the same time, it's not like just about saying no because we can afford to. It's also like risk assessment and risk management, because
100% agree.
how many times, let's say, Patrick Clare will come to you once, right? And maybe you're busy. It happened to me like 2 years ago. Once it was August, and Patrick and Raul asked me to work on a commercial and stuff. I'm like, I love these guys so much. I want to do everything with them, but nope, I'm on vacation. And I'm saying, sorry guys, I'm on vacation. I never hear from them back. So it's a little tricky with the choices because some of them can backfire at you, and some others can keep you back instead of going forward, because sometimes you're afraid more than you have to, and you just need to take this risk and say, fuck it, I'm going to do the simulation overnight secretly. I won't say anything to anyone. But it's kind of a risk-reward thing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, going back to your point, I would also say that it also, like, we all have our brains like wired differently. Mm-hmm. And so this is a conversation we had with Reese Parker in a previous episode, because he does cell animation, like frame by frame. Man, I love the animation. I just hate the process. Like, it's visceral. Like, as soon as I start like drawing images, I'm going like, oh man, I want to flip the table. But and we were joking about it because like, but it's his thing. Like, his brain is like, he said, yeah, man, I know it's hard and everything, but that's how his brain is wired, like. And I think sometimes, like, you don't have to force yourself into structures that your brain is not wired for. There's stuff that you can learn, and I think that you have to also learn to identify things that your whole body rejects. Where as soon as you sit, the whole body's going like like, I don't want to do this, and you still like force through it, and of course it's not going to be good, because like throughout the whole time you were going like, I hate it. So I think, like, I would say, like, to kind of like wrap this topic, is I would say, like, listen to what's coming out of you. It's like, do you enjoy it? Sure, it's hard because you didn't know the tool and everything, but you're kind of like intrigued. Do you want to know more? Or you're going like, you're just waiting for this job to be over because, like, can't stand it anymore.
Yeah, of course. And I think also one last touch on this is, I also, at least how I proceeded with feeling comfortable and gaining a better reputation for myself. I always tried to push for one thing. So I was always better at lighting and look dev and knowing my way around the render engines very well from the beginning, while I wasn't such a good animator at the time. So if I was failing in the task of animation, I would just say, hey, but I can help you with this, And so even if you fail in something, you were succeeding in something else, and you were somehow minimizing the risk of losing your position. But of course, as I said, I have done I've literally done sims overnight. I was fiddling with Phoenix and 3ds Max to create a drop once, because it was my first day on the job, and they asked me to do this very detailed drops that fall and gracefully go up and everything. And I had no idea how. I was like, oh, and I was like, yeah, let me see to it. I kind of succeeded, but not really, but you know what
I exactly know what you mean. I'm gonna ask you, this is going to be the last question, so we start like landing the plane. As artists, we always like chase different things. Excellence, to work with this client, it can be anything, I have the feeling that in your quests, since you like to play MMOs and your side quests, you managed to attain some of those things you were chasing. But we know the song is, as soon as you reach the destination, there's like a new destination that appears. So I was curious, what is it you're chasing right now? Like, or right now, or like in the future, what is your next destination now?
To
If
work less.
if you can say.
to work as less as possible at this point.
That's a good one.
It's like I'm, as I was hinting before, I'm trying to ramp things in a different context, so things just work for me more passively rather than actively at this point. I don't know if I'll pull the trigger on this, but I really want to take time away from our screens. I want to be on the screen because I want to play and not because there is a need for this anymore. And I don't know, I guess I was speaking recently with my friend Grun Kim that won an Emmy last year with a title sequence. What was the thing with the Last of Us?
Oh yeah,
sequence of Last of Us and everything. And I think that would be the only last thing that would intrigue me to work in because I really feel that my style in surrealism and cinematic things matches a lot in what they do over there, some teams at Elastic. I would really love to do a title sequence and win an Emmy and go there and wear my suit and everything, have photo these things, but not really a goal, let's say, more like for fun to say, oh, this happened to me in my life, because everything in life is just fleeting moments and nothing lasts. And in the end, I just don't believe in the nature of our work very much, if not at all. I believe what we do is completely pointless. We're just designers. We do things for money, just another job, I try to focus more on the humane side of things the more I grow older rather than the business or motion design or anything. I prefer to have, let's say, like, to remember this conversation that we had today and say, oh, I remember this guy, we said a few things, it was fun, we laughed, we debated, rather than I will never remember anyone's render anymore or commercial or this amazing camera, although I still do, but you know what I mean. Going forward, I want to withdraw from that, withdraw also from social media if I can, because they start to become a burden for me, because I have to advertise my Patreon, and I really tone down all of these things in general with advertising myself, because I feel like a salesman at this point and I don't like it. And also because I'm a little, I feel a lot of saturation recently in social media in terms of work. I see the same things over and over and over, and I'm so sick of it. Like at some point I was saying to my wife, days ago, I don't want to look anymore at motion design at all. I don't want to. I just want to go outside. I want to read some books. I want to do some photography. I just can't be looking at social media or how people share their lives or what they think is important so much. Like, I just don't care. I have my life. I have my own things going. So yeah, I guess next steps for me is get away from digital as much as possible over the next few years.
Yeah, I totally connect with what you're saying, because everything is a screen now. Like your phone is a screen, your computer is a screen, your television is a screen, the signage on the street is a screen. Even like in some places, the table is a freaking screen. Like screen. We are exposed to blue light like constantly. And now that I have also like a kid, like now she's grown quite a bit, but I'm trying to limit as much as I can her exposure. I know she will be flooded with it by it, like when, there's some point I won't be able to control that anymore, but I'm trying to have her enjoy, for now, stuff that's away from screens, because then everything becomes screens. Like you want to play, it's a screen. Like you're glued to these things. And I think I myself too have been appreciating more and more the disconnect. And I mean, I do a job. I love talking to people. Like part of like the reasons why I'm a creative director or an art director is because I get to meet new people and meet new visions of things and talk and exchange. And yeah, sometimes it's hard, you debate, but like it's the human contact that like interests me the most in what I do nowadays, more than, it's going to be cool. Like, yeah, sure. I geek out with that a lot, but in the end, I want to make meaningful connections. And even like when I approach a new project, like this is something we've discussed with Ryan Summers. It's like he collects like this whole battery of of inspiration and images and trends and what people are doing. And like, he's like scanning the whole social media thing, blah, blah, blah. And I told him like, man, I do the exact opposite. I just run away on the other direction. I don't want to see, like, if I have a motion design project, the thing that I'm mostly going to avoid is motion design, because I want to be inspired by other things. There's like so much art in other aspects that like motion design, get inspired by a painting, by a movie, by a book, by something you saw into nature. Like, and I was explaining how some of the projects were kind of like those ideas that came up not by looking at the thing, but by like being completely disconnected from it. But your brain stays kind of like in the background in a loop, and then connects, do things that like, if you look at them just analytically, they are super far away. But then you go like, yeah, but this is the perfect metaphor for this other thing. Like I had a project for the Red Cross and about migrants and about like these places that are called HSP, so human resource human service point, which is like, it can be a tent, a truck, two guys with a table in front of a house. It's like people, volunteers that like just feel the pulse of where migrants are passing by, and they're providing like vital, essential things, which is like food, water, but it can be just go home, or just like talk. Get someone to sit with you, hold your hand, and just talk. And so we didn't have the budget to travel throughout the whole world and film that. That was impossible. And so at some point, like researching, like not even researching, but like just going through random things, I end up falling on something about like Stranger Things, which is totally disconnected. Stranger Things has nothing to do with migrants at all. It's like the upside down world and all that thing. But I end up falling on this image of Eleven when she's in the black space, and in my hand that made me click, and I was like, that's the perfect metaphor. That's how I'm going to represent what the journey of a migrant is when they leave their home and they arrive somewhere. The whole traveling is nothingness, is you're invisible, like invisible to people, invisible to media. It's like, like everything started to like shaping into my head. And of course, then in my head also, like budget wise, I went like, okay, we can rent a studio, like a black box studio. We have the budget for that. And we can shoot 70% of the thing there. But I'm not sure if I had researched what all the commercials and things were doing, if I would have come to that conclusion or not. Maybe yes, maybe not. I don't know. But so yeah, I completely understand your approach of feeding your brain with something different. So before we close it, is there anything else you want to add or say? These are your last words.
Thank you. No, not really. I just want to thank you for starting the week with a conversation rather than work. And I hope your channel just blows up and you invite more people and you do more of these talks, because while I'm not a fan of podcasts and things like this, from time to time, they really help me to gain a different perspective, and they really help also a lot of people to know that they're not alone when we share stories, when we say things, when we share ideas and opinions. I have underestimated in my life how much it helps people to be part of our digital community, let's say, and having the answers in a casual conversation sometimes, rather in tutorials or structured courses or whatever. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing, and I wish you the best.
I don't know if my channel is going to blow up, because this is not the most popular format, I would say.
Of course, but you're not naked. I know.
Yeah, I'm not shocked. I'm not saying like this is the doom of whatever. The whole system is rigged like that, but it's on purpose. I'm okay with not, breaking the scores and everything, as long as this can help something or someone. So thank you for being with me. It was a lovely time, and see you around.
See you around.